point. If there are any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Carl, can you just confirm though that the net property sales target of 60 billion looks a bit of a challenge, or are you confident you can do it this year?
I think it would be fair to say we're confident we'll be able to hit the number for property sales in total this year. Obviously there's a split for us between the development and disposals and what we have in terms of the portfolio disposals. The portfolio disposals are looking a little bit light, but the development disposals look like they'll make up for that. So at this stage we are confident we'll hit that number.
Yeah. So going forward to the LTP next year, obviously you're going to have a much tighter and informed sort of inquiry into whether you're going to be able to reach targets, because we're more than aware that is going to be an ongoing challenge, because the more that we lock up within the transform and the unlock categories, that's obviously going to be regenerated back in, and we have to take a longer term view as to when we can actually get that capital uplift. So
I think the challenge with disposals generally is if you took it on a 12-month period and looked at the numbers today, you'd probably think we'd miss that target. But because they can come in quite bite-sized chunks, we're certainly confident with what's in the pipeline at the moment that we will hit those numbers.
Yeah, what you'll find, Roger, is increasingly as we go along, local boards and their local councillors are going to be fighting to hold on to land, especially within their town centres, because of long-term views, and especially those within, as I say, the unlock and the transform categories. Yeah. They're going to question the short-term need to realise land with money going into the consolidated pot. So.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we would certainly give you early warning if we didn't think we were going to meet our targets. Yeah.
So Councillor Fletcher and Councillor Casey, I just asked if we can remember Roger's been on the job for 2 weeks, so we don't want to get too. So right, and we're just trying to keep tracking on. I'm going to take 3 more people, and that's it, I'm afraid.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Councillor Fletcher.
And Roger, while I appreciate you've only been in the job for a short time, perhaps the answers can come. Really appreciate the work that's being undertaken with the Selwyn Foundation, but I guess for the period under consideration, I just want the assurance, the comfort of knowing that the process for due diligence on the Civic Administration building hasn't identified any concerns in terms of going forward, and that you can give us the assurance that that will be properly undertaken before contracts are signed.
Yes, I think I can give you a comment there, Councillor. Due diligence is still ongoing, but we consider we have adequate safeguards in the development agreement that will ensure we get the outcomes that you seek and we seek. One important component of it is the apartment sales in the Civic building, which is starting now, if you like, to get an idea of, shall we say, the economic viability of the whole project, and that early in the new year will be resolved, and there will be confirmation for you.
I think that that's very important. There's no new information you can give me at this stage.
No, there's no new information, but we've done quite a bit of research already on Tawara. They have a good reputation, and we are satisfied that they were the best of the proposals.
Thank you. I will appreciate further updates.
Councillor Casey.
Well, I've got 3 questions, Roger, and I appreciate you might not be able to answer any of them, so you can keep them for touch to somebody else. I'll ask them all one after the other. The first is, with regard to housing for older people, you mentioned that you're doing your hardest or your best, or it's your aspiration to get as much over the at least as possible, but we've actually changed our resolution in the Housing Action Plan. It used to be maintain at least, now it's increase.
Yes.
So my question is, what concrete plans do you have to increase it? I don't want it to be an aspiration. I want to know how many and how you're bringing that back to us. That's the first one. The second one is about local board issues. In the report, you say that that's one of your urgent issues to deal with local boards, and you suggest a tripartite kind of new framework with a senior advisor and 3 other advisors to take up portfolios. My question is, are these geographical portfolios or are they some other portfolio structure, and how is that going to work? And my third one is about the secrecy of your board meetings. It was my cause yesterday to look at Panuku via your website, and it was almost inaccessible to find an agenda. And when I did find it, it said there are no public papers available because this was a confidential meeting. So it was just to really alert you to the fact that I wonder about that in terms of the Local Government Official Information Meetings Act, and whether, like Councillor Mike Lee is now chairing a committee called the Strategic Procurement Committee, where half of a report is in public, or the good stuff is in public and the secret stuff's in confidential. And I'm just wondering if that's something that Panuku should look at into the future, that not everything you're going to hide needs hiding, actually. So yeah. I'd be interested in your view on that.
Same items, the public component of the same items.
Yeah, that's right.
Can I answer that question, Councillor Casey?
Sure.
We do have the opportunity for the public to attend the front end of our meetings 3 times a year. We advertise that, and so far we haven't had any response even to the last advertisement. We are also prepared to accept any public deputation on a matter at the beginning of a meeting and listen to what that matter is. Obviously, the commercial information that we discuss is commercially sensitive, and it's inappropriate to have the public in at that point, and it's not a 50-50 balance. But we're not trying to be a secret society, if that answers your question.
So you will be looking at whether some of the confidential material that's currently in confidential could be made public alongside the way that Councillor Lee's organising.
Wherever possible, we will make what can be made public.
Fantastic.
And I think from my personal perspective, when I was looking at the organisation at the time that I was doing my own technical due diligence, there was very little available in the public domain. And that's something that I'm passionate to change.
Good.
You know, we need to be more open. We need to have a very engaging response, not only with the stakeholders, but also with the public at large. They need to get a really sense of what's going on. And clearly there are areas of commercial confidence which has to be protected. And a lot of those are very much around discussions around the disposal of assets, around the acquisition of assets. And certainly while we're in this period of competition, then we need to be very sensitive of that information. To respond to your other question, I think from my personal approach, it's about having a strategy for the whole of Auckland. And it's not looking at parochial level, but looking at the much wider agenda. I think the big elephant in the room is about providing affordable and sheltered accommodation across the whole piece. And what I'm really keen to do is to use the best practices and to organisations that I've worked for previously and bring a lot of that knowledge to the organisation and share with our council and with major stakeholders to see how we can make a paradigm shift in the way that we deliver housing across Auckland. And it's not an aspirational piece for me, I can assure you. My focus is about delivery, and that's what I would look to be measured on in terms of the future.
Thank you, Roger.
The last question was about the local boards and the new structure, whether it was geographical portfolios or some other such.
Yeah, it's geographic from my perspective.
All right, so is that north, west and south?
Early days. Sorry, I'm just conscious, Councillor Casey. I mean,
It's in the
Roger's been there 2
report.
weeks.
It's in the report here.
Yes, okay, but I've got 4 more speakers, and with water care, we're 45 minutes behind. So, Roger, answer the question then.
Thank you.
Sorry, do you want to answer Councillor Casey's last point there?
From my perspective, I want to make sure that north, south, east and west, that we cover the whole of Auckland. And from a geographical perspective, everybody is embraced.
Thank you. Richard, do you have to go? Because we understand if you have to leave, or we're still
Well, I can stay another 5 minutes, Mr Chairman.
Councillor Watson, then Councillor Sayers, Councillor Hills and Councillor Darby.
I had my hand up too.
Thanks. In terms of the regeneration of the civic administration building that you mentioned, you referred to anticipated outcomes or agreed objectives, or however you like to phrase it. How specific are those agreed objectives, and are they publicly available?
Yes, they are Pacific objectives. There are, Roger referred to a number of developments, not just the civic building, and it is split into stages. And the most important stage to complete is stage 1, which is the civic building, and that's the first stage and the most difficult. And the developer will be under certain conditions that has to be satisfied to give council protection that it will be completed. And the balance of the development will enhance, shall we say, not only the area, but also make the development viable. A civic building on its own is not a viable proposition for a developer.
So, given its Category A heritage classification, are those details available then for the public?
Yes, they've been available. There will be requirements on the developer that in the renovation of the building that will have to get it back to the Category A classification. So when we're talking about the facade, which is needing work, it will have to look like the existing facade, for example.
Thank you.
Councillor Sayers.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Thank you for your presentation, gentlemen, and the interim report. This being a Finance and Performance Committee, I appreciate the updates on the performance, but my question does come back to the finances side again, and the lack of detail in here. We just got a verbal update there, so it's kind of difficult in this governance role to understand fully what's going on. So my question is the same that I've asked each CCO that's been up here today, in terms of your organisation. What mechanisms you can give councillors to look more into the operational side of the business, and how we do that, and to what depth we might be able to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr Chair, we're fully aware of the requirements within the letter of expectation from the Mayor, and we're on board with opening up the finances to a more detailed departmental level for the councillors, so that you can see how the marina operations, for example, work separate from the development operations or the property management operations. Obviously, with getting the balance on detail right for councillors, there may be some pushback from you, but that's fine. We'll adapt the reporting as required.
Yeah, okay, well, thank you for that. And just the second question, Mr Chair, was a little bit earlier when I asked that question from CCO. You said if I want further information, I should probably go through Robert. Yeah. So, well, if you could just clarify for me, because Robert, I understand, is an officer for Auckland Council, where I thought that if we wanted information from a CCO, we'd go through the CCO, and that if we wanted information from council-controlled organisations, we actually would do that through more of a resolution, perhaps through the local, through the governing body.
Remember, they are CCOs, and they do sit outside our realm to a degree. It's all very well, yes, with council-controlled organisations, but they have an independent board with independent financials, and there is confidentiality, etc., etc. But we do have a method to get through, and Sue, do you want to just explain it?
Thank you, Chair. Just to add to that, we do have quite extensive relationship through the finance team with all of the CCOs. So the information that you're seeking, we will, obviously, as part of the budget refresh process in February, we'll go right across the council group. So that is council parent and all the CCOs. It all comes back to the fact that that's the Auckland Council group balance sheet and funding that goes through the CCOs. We're constantly monitoring that, so if there is information that you're requesting, we would ask that you come through the finance team and we will get that for you.